Wasn't really happy with my performance in the HR interview, but they seemed to be happy with it. That's why I got selected. This is how my XLRI BM interview went. So there were 3 panelists, one of them was a female and 2 were males. The interview went on for around 22 minutes. So the first question that they asked me was, there are many communities in India, can you name some of them? So top of my head, I wasn't able to remember a lot of that, but I just basically talked about in the west we have Jats and Gujars, moving centrally we have Yadavs in the UPs, east we have so on and so forth. I talked about a few of them. They did not seem satisfied with the answer at all. We laughed it off, but I messed up the answer. Then they asked me, anyway, which community do you belong to? I said Kayasth. What is the history of Kayasth? I talked about Lord Chitragupt, his sons, so on and so forth. They said, no, not the mythological part. It's good that you know that, but I mean, what do they do? So I talked about initially we were accountants, but our debating ability also make us eligible for law as a profession. They seemed satisfied with this answer. Then they asked me about, though there's many Shri, SRI, SHRI, Srivastav, iterations of Srivastav. Why is that? So I talked about how it depended on the region. In the northern belt you will find more Sri, in the east it will be more Shri. So they said, so is there any Kayasth community in Bengal? I said yes, the Boses. How do you know? So I talked about how my parents might have told me I tried to tie it to Subhash Chandra Bose, so on and so forth. Does one's identity matter? Should it be of any importance? I said absolutely. You need to know your beginnings, your roots. It helps you know what the world expects of you and what you should be prepared for. They said, so if I, let's say, replace all the names with numbers, would it make everyone equal? And will it be the right thing to do? I talked about how in communist Soviet, they tried to remove the concept of God to make everyone equal, but it backfired. The differences are what fuels people to make a mark for themselves. They asked me if caste and Varn are the same. I said no, castes are many, Varn are just 4. Caste is the umbrella term. They said, are you sure? I said, I'm not certain, but that's what I remember. Anyway, so then they asked me, so where do Kayasth come? I said, outside of Varna. They said, are you sure? I said, yes ma'am. Where would you place yourself in the Varna system if you could? I jokingly said Kayasth are often compared with Brahmins, so they interrupted me. They said, everyone wants to be compared to Brahmins. So I also laughed along with them. I said, yes ma'am, but from my understanding, Kayasth are more academically inclined, often bookworms. Therefore, the comparison. So they said, so would you say Kayasth are intellectual? I said, not me ma'am, but my family will definitely say this. So then everyone was laughing. So then the next faculty had asked me, so you worked with a company called XYZ. What did the company do? So I went into depth about what they did, what kind of a software that they sell. So if I'm a fire contractor, let's say, and somebody wants to get an inspection done, can he not go to a portal and get it done? Why do they need you guys? I said, they can sir, but our software helps them manage the jobs for them. Portal can only help with the scheduling and dispatching side of things, but our software can help them manage their day-to-day. And then I explained really well. They were like, got it. What was your job there? I said an SDR. So you did engineering, then you went to become a salesperson. Why? Do you like calling up people and disturbing them, or do you not like coding? So I smiled and said, no sir, I hope they don't feel disturbed. Also, it isn't as much I don't like to code. In fact, I love coding. I obviously lied, I hate coding. It's just I had multiple offers in college, and upon research I found the job role to my liking, and I liked the work I was doing here. So I decided against changing my job role. Actually, it's because of the sales role that I generated interest in marketing. Was hoping he would shift the conversation, but he did not. So then the third faculty took over. He said, hi, you have mentioned in your SOP that you like blockchain. Can you please tell me what is SHA 256? So I explained it. Then they were like, where is it used? Then I went into a depth about explaining where it is used. Then they said, explain to me how the Bitcoin blockchain works. I explained that as well. So what does the Bitcoin blockchain contain? Again, explain that well. So you might have heard of the term miner. Why are they called miners? I had a complete brain fade. I absolutely forgot. So I said it had something to do with deal with computational powers and carbon footprint, I think. It was completely wrong, of course. A miner is called so because there are only a limited number of bitcoins, which is basically why it's called mining. Then they were like, explain UTXO to us. So I said, I can't recall that at the moment. You must have read it in college, no? I said, I'm extremely sorry, sir. In college, I primarily worked towards the application part of blockchain, in solidarity, smart contracts, etc. So they said, what are fungible and non-fungible tokens, and give an example for both of them in real life. And then finally, they were like, that's all from me. It was a pleasure talking with you. I said, likewise, sir. So that's how the interviews went.
If you have made it so far, please consider subscribing, as I will keep coming out with more useful content like this.
In the HR interview, there are a few things to note. The faculties were more concerned about how I dealt with real-world problems, including my work as a sales representative. It's very clear they were interested in my role as both an SDR and as an entrepreneur. Now mind you, while I did not necessarily face many questions on HR itself, it was purely because they found my work experience quite interesting. And in all honesty, you can and should expect questions on HR. They did ask me, however, why I wanted to do HR given they do ask for your preference beforehand. And the worst answer you can give is, oh, I am giving this interview because I am eligible. Anyway, they asked me about some ethical dilemmas I faced and if data privacy and withholding pricing based information can be considered as you being untrue or immoral to your clients or not. That's about my HR interview. For my BM interview, however, I was asked more about technical stuff I had mentioned, such as my knowledge of blockchain. They also went in depth about my role as an SDR and even my knowledge of castes. Now, if you're not good at a certain topic, they will change it almost instantaneously. They do not expect you to know everything at all. But anything mentioned in your CV, you definitely need to be well versed with that. I personally believe I did a really good job in my XLRI BM interview. It definitely was my best interview till date. But then again, there are only a few spots and they must have had better suited candidates for the same. Remember, it is always a good idea to schedule your interviews towards the beginning of the season and not at the end or even middle. This is because they do get tired after a certain point of time, and while they try to be as unbiased as they can, the onus is on you to make it as interesting as possible. For now, keep these pointers in mind, rewatch this video whenever you need any help with your preparation, save it if you would like to. I have went in depth about my overall experience right from the beginning of the season, and I personally believe you need not look at any other videos for XAT or XLRI preparation if you are well versed with the strategies mentioned here. Thank you so much for showing my videos so much love across the past few months. I really appreciate the kind comments and do read them regularly, trying to comment to them as much as possible. If you have any XAT related query, you can ask me down below. And as always, thanks for watching.